So 2 years ago, our synod began a discernment process. Many of you were probably a part of that process as we came to a transition with our bishop. And as part of that discernment process, our synod conducted a survey and began to work on creating a synodical profile. As part of that prep and discernment, we prepared both a hard look at our statistical reality as well as a survey to poll our synod about its future direction and what it was looking for in the next bishop. Now, the statistical side of that profile revealed some really hard truths. Of our 150 congregations at that time, 115, 75%, reported a decline in worship. 75% of our congregations were declining. And while I don't think this truth is anything new for many of us, I believe it is something that we have been feeling for a very long time. Perhaps this was the first time that we all really collectively came to grips with this reality. And while that statistic looks grim, I don't think that we as a synod desired to keep it that way. And so we desired to do something new. So as we were collecting the survey that was completed by 270 of us, both rostered and lay, leadership in congregations and those not, we discovered our hopes and dreams for what we could be. And so at the end of the survey, respondents were asked what they thought success would look like in 5 years' time. Their answer? Growing and thriving congregations with fewer at-risk congregations. We wanted to have more diverse and socially justice-minded congregations. And we wanted to see a cohesive Christian community working together. Anybody hear the beloved community in that? That was our collective desire. We wanted a future that looked like that. And today and this weekend we might hear beloved community, but I hear vitality. I hear a desire to create vital communities of faith who are thriving and making up a vital piece of their community for the sake of the gospel, who desire to make a vital difference in their community. I hear vitality. So I think we're beginning to catch the vision of a future with vibrant and vital faith communities. The trouble is that we're unsure of how to get there. We have statistics that say we're missing the mark, but we're not exactly sure how to move forward. I believe that we need to start with understanding the landscape of the religious world has fundamentally shifted. That we are currently navigating a giant paradigm shift as we come to terms with the fact that the way that we understood church in a previous era no longer seem to be working for us. And so now there should be a slide that shows a picture of a church from the 1940s in black and white with all the people standing out front versus a picture of a household calendar jam-packed. Anybody's calendar at home look like that? For many of us, our lives are jammed and packed, and the way that we live in the world today is completely different. So I was at a continuing ed event within the last year when I came across a new term, VUCA. V-U-C-A. Anybody hear that? VUCA. Now, VUCA is an acronym that was first used by the Army War College to describe the increasing complexity of the battlefield following the Cold War. Since 9/11, it has become part of the new norm that many of our military understand. And in the last few years, the Harvard Business School got a hold of the term and has even started to use it to describe the current marketplace and economics. So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And the more and more folks are learning to help people navigate this new reality that we all find ourselves in, we're finding it important to learn that there are ways that we can navigate within that complex world. The way forward may seem ambiguous at times because our world has shifted, and perhaps it's time for the church to shift as well. So as we were beginning to discern our future as a synod, our national church with the ELCA has also been part of a giant denominational discernment process. As part of their Always Being Made New campaign, the ELCA has launched a visioning process that asks the questions of how we might be church in this new day. The Future Directions is a goal-setting and prioritizing process to imagine the church that we are becoming with clarity of vision and purpose. The result of this work, two central components emerged. The first being an emphasis on helping leadership to develop. The second, a focus on congregational vitality. As the ELCA looks ahead to the future, we aspire to have congregations whose faith shines in their relationship with God, each other, and their community. Vital congregations experience heightened worship, prayer, the study of Scripture, and sharing of testimony as they discern the presence and will of God in their midst. You see, it's not just SEPA hoping for growing and thriving churches. It's part of a contagious and igniting movement that's happening across our country and across our denomination as we continue to raise vital communities of faith. So what is congregational vitality? Well, by definition, we are communities of Jesus that nurture life-changing relationships with God, each other, and the world. This definition was identified because when we explored these vital and thriving communities, we discovered that they do these three things. They strengthen their relationship with God, they nurture relationships, and they demonstrate a strong presence in the community. We also discovered that these congregations exhibit vital signs. And much like the vital signs you collect when you go to the doctor, they aren't a diagnosis of health or disease, but they help in making a diagnosis possible. They are checkpoints into a community's collective health. So what my friend Tim is going to present next is a look at those vital signs, those vital characteristics of vital communities of faith that our vitality team, when we brainstormed together and thinking through this presentation, thought would be ways that we could share them with you, ways that we're seeing these vital signs already taking root in our communities.
All right, thanks. Hey, Tim Johansson, Temple in Havertown. It's a bunch of things that vital congregations do. The first one, vital congregations invite and welcome all. I think of King of Prussia, Good Shepherd, King of Prussia, who outside their church put these really awesome banners about God's doors being open to everyone, just a sign of radical inclusion and welcome. And today we thank God for Emmanuel and Norwood and their work to become our synod's newest reconciling in Christ congregation. They took a bold stance and said that we are welcome, all are welcome in this place, regardless of orientation or gender identity. There are so many ways that you can invite and welcome all gender restrooms, installing an elevator, becoming more ADA compliant, reevaluating the signage around your building so that when a visitor rolls up, they actually know how to find your worship space. Examine your property with fresh eyes and imagine what it might look and smell like to a visitor walking in for the first time. The next thing is that vital congregations worship in spirit and truth. In Reformation, in Mount Airy, they continually respond admirably to the changes in demographics within their community, and what authentic worship looks like for them. It just means doing everything that they can to make sure that their worship resonates with their neighbors. That's what authenticity is. Every Sunday afternoon, shortly after worship concludes, a compelling, vibrant sermon is uploaded to a podcast. Well done, Pastor Nate. The people of Little Zion, right here in Telford, are leading the way in cross-generational worship that intentionally creates relationships between people of different generations in the context of a worship experience. Pastor Lydia Posselt of Family of God in Buckingham now has a podcast called Lit Liturgy. Pull out your phones, subscribe now. This offers ideas for how you can make your worship more engaging and relevant as you plan each liturgical season. Imagine a congregational worship life where each Sunday your members can share something new and innovative that they've done so that they can effectively invite others and tell your church's story. If you're looking for more ideas on how to make worship more relevant, powerful, moving, and dare I say, fun, find me. I'd love to tell you about what we have going on in Havertown. Vital congregations share faith and tell stories. The Welcome Church, which, if you haven't figured it out by now, is a faith community for those experiencing homelessness, got to bring some of their church members to Boston for an event, this retreat, this get-together, this visioning event for other congregations with a similar mission. This trip was made possible by the Forward Together in Faith campaign. These similar congregations were able to come together, tell stories, compare notes about how ministry should be done or can be done in their settings, and just support one another and be there for one another. Please, siblings, create safe spaces for people to share their faith and tell their stories. Within worship, in Bible studies, in public forums, encourage this. Let worship be practice for going out in the world and telling your story. Everyone's story is special, different, beautiful, and worth telling. Next, vital congregations promote healing. They promote healing. We are blessed to have a bishop who is dedicated to being vulnerable for the sake of promoting healing, particularly pertaining to matters of racial justice. We appreciate your bold stances and vision and mission there. We must all be vulnerable, honest, and most of us here need to learn how to shut up and listen to the voices of marginalized persons in our midst. We must amplify their voices and provide forums for them to tell their stories whenever they feel comfortable doing so. Kairos communities, led by Pastor Bob Fisher, one of their worshiping communities has a addictions or recovery focus. Thank you, Pastor Bob, for carrying the message and the gospel message. Friends, consider all of the groups in your building and how they might be able to be in deeper relationship with you, with God. People in recovery are awesome. Next, vital congregations show mercy and do justice by serving all. In the ways we serve those on the margins and in the ways that we publicly call out injustice in our midst, we are doing the work that we are baptized to do. At the end of the promises that we make when we baptize kids in our congregation, those two words appear: so that. Friends, we are baptized so that we might care for others and the world God made, work for justice and peace in this world. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Showing mercy and doing justice, serving all is who we are and what we are created to do. Next, vital congregations practice radical generosity in all things. This past year, St. Paul's in Ardmore doubled the size of their already sizable community garden so that they can bless other food ministries with the abundant harvest that they create. And as their neighbors about a mile away, our food pantry benefits greatly from your hard work and generosity. This is a good time to remind you that as your people are generous to your congregation, so too are you to be generous to others. If your congregation has been blessed with abundance, please actively look for ways to invest in the good works of congregations and institutions around you. We are blessed to be a blessing. Amen. Vital congregations grow and connect leaders. Many of you were able to attend the Canoeing the Mountains event, and thanks to Pastor Brad Burke for his hard work there. Many conferences are now starting to coordinate educational events and are inviting others. Delco represent. Our seminary, oh my goodness, our seminary, it makes me so happy to think of all the scholarships that are now available that weren't just a few years ago to those who want to enter ordained ministry. And let's keep supporting our seminaries. Well-supported seminarians make better pastors. It's true. Vital congregations are rooted in their community. I think of St. Mark's and Conshohocken and how they make their presence known every St. Patrick's Day as they set up a table with free water and pretzels for those who, let's face it, would probably benefit from some hydration and sustenance. And New Hanover Lutheran Church in Gilbertsville is in the process of buying a food truck so that they can better serve their community. Vital congregations create change. There's this group called Faithful Innovation Work. It's a network spanning across 5 synods, including 8 of the most vital congregations in SIPA. And they're in this process. It's a 3-year process to discuss how to create healthy environments that promote change and flexibility. Through relationships formed, ideas shared, this group has been a life-giving experience for those involved. In all change, let's face it, there's loss. I'll say that again, in all change, there's loss. And it isn't easy, but a seed must fall to the ground and die, and we know that God is calling us to something bigger, greater. Vital congregations are grounded in hope. Hope that better days await the church. Hope that our work is not in vain. Hope that we can indeed make this world a better place. Feast of Justice in Northeast Philadelphia is a great example of a ministry that never stops hoping. Pastor Tricia Neal and a myriad of faithful servants from all around the synod continue to move forward to care for and feed their neighbors. They hope for more for the people around them. And as they serve faithfully, God provides. It's true. And finally, faithful congregations embody God's presence. You know, there's a reason that we in this synod set standards for diversity in our leadership, particularly Synod Council. We as a church must strive to reflect the diversity of the area that we serve, not of the faces in this room. We still have a lot of work to do. But this is one of the ways that we can embody the very presence of God. And friends, you and me have the distinct honor, privilege, and responsibility to be the closest version of Christ that anyone will see this side of his return. Every time I see that sign that says, "Beloved Community," I read it another way too. Be loved, community. Allow yourselves to be loved by one another, by God, by people who are different from you. Open up. Put yourselves out there. Take risks. Fail. Take more risks. Let nothing hold you back. You are a child of the Creator of the universe. Think about that. You are a child of the Creator of the universe. What can stop you? Own it and move forward in confidence. Sipa, Sister Tracy, we can do this. Amen.
So what these vital signs are, maybe, there they are a different kind of metrics. It was true in a previous year that butts and bucks were a pretty good way to show viability for a congregation. But as we continue to inhabit this transitioning and shifting landscape, perhaps we need to look first at being vital. And we have discovered that you can be vital as a congregation in your community with 30 people, and you can be completely unvital with 1,300 people. The institutional models of assessment are no longer working for where the church is going. These vital signs are a new kind of metric that looks at thriving rather than failing. So how are we going to begin this growing movement of vitality? Well, it starts with relationships. Our hope is that we will commit to fostering and developing relationships with God, with each other, and the world. Because our God, in the fullness of time, decided to have a relationship with us by being vulnerable and coming into the world as the Word made flesh. Born as one of no consequence, he risked coming into the world as one of the most oppressed people the world has ever known. And when we risk relationship, when we too become vulnerable to others, especially those not like ourselves, we recover the vital work of the gospel. This is what it means to take seriously Jesus' great command to love your neighbor and the great commission, go therefore and make disciples. It's about life-changing relationships with God, with each other, and the world. Because we have been transformed by a relationship with God's grace and mercy. And so we want to be able to help you navigate this shifting religious landscape. We want to help you focus on creating these vital relationships. And so this fall, I'll ask you to save the date now. This summer, we're going to work on putting together a training day on Saturday, November 9th. I don't know where yet, but put it on the calendar. We're inviting leadership of congregations, but especially lay and council leadership who want to be part of this vitality movement. I want to imagine what a vital community of faith yours could be in your community. And so we're going to look at these vital signs, and we're going to spend the day together getting deeper into a relationship with God, each other, and our communities. And so it'll be a day of learning and exploring and discerning. And I've gone 10 minutes over, and I know that it's lunchtime soon. So I was going to teach you about adaptive change, but I'm going to leave it and say, join us on November 9th. Because the answer for how we navigate these VUCA times together is we have to have the capacity to change the way we make decisions. And we have to change the way we've always done things. And one of the ways that gets us out of our normal box is to begin in a process and a procedure of adaptive change. And I know that many of my pastor colleagues have been engaging this and are versed in it, but we know that it's time, I know at least in St. Mark's, to equip my congregational leadership with that same vocabulary and being able to imagine what God might be doing differently in our communities. So I invite you to join us for that. I'm so glad that we are here together in this space, imagining what beloved, vital communities could look like. So if you will, look to someone next to you, maybe a friendly person, and say, "I'm glad you're here." And then I want you to look at the next person on the other side of you and say, "You are part of the beloved community." And then pick another person and say, "We're in this together and we got this." Thank you.